Ethan Gilsdorf. He's a writer, a professor, a teacher, a poet, and a self-proclaimed nerd. Ethan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me back.
We're happy to have you back. So, okay, we were just talking about robots and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, math, all that kind of stuff. And now we're getting rid of the robots, and we're talking all about using our imagination.
Yes.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
You love it. You
I
say
do.
it's good for us.
It is good for us.
It makes us better people. And you're actually going to be teaching classes at the Rochambeau Library coming up for young adults, kids, teenagers.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about, he has 5 reasons why Dungeons and Dragons will make you a better person. So if that's not a reason to take your class.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know what is.
Other than to have fun. I mean, that's obviously the main thing. You know, for the kids, it's like, just get them in the door, tell them that it's fun, and then secretly, you know, we teach them other things.
You teach other things. So
it's like a subversive
You've
activity.
written extensively on this. You've done a TEDx talk. You've written many articles for Salon. I mean, this is something that you do. You truly believe in this because it really did change you.
Yeah.
So you brought a big dive for us. For people who don't know what Dungeons and Dragons is, let's really talk about it and kind of explain it, and then we'll get into why it will make us all better people.
Sure. So Dungeons and Dragons is a fantasy role-playing game. And I think when most people think of role-playing games, they think of online games like video games.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm also a total nerd when it comes to video games, but this is a game that involves no screens, no devices at all. And it's the game I grew up playing. I learned how to play when I was a middle school kid back in the 1970s, if you can imagine. And it's a very low-tech game. We use dice, not necessarily a dice this big, but multi-sided dice, little figurines, a map. But most of it is a sort of group storytelling experience. And that's the best way to sort of describe it. Imagine if you know a book like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or something like that. Those characters in those books, they go off and have adventures, things happen to them, and each kid or each character in those stories have unique traits and personalities and unique sort of special abilities, right? So in a game like Dungeons and Dragons, which is sort of the fantasy swords and sorcery version of, really, there's many kinds of role-playing games, but Dungeons and Dragons is the best known one. As a player, you get to be imagine you get to be Bilbo Baggins, or you get to be Harry Potter. And we sit around a table and we tell a story together. There's one person sort of in charge of the plot and sort of behind the scenes, sort of deciding what really is going on in the background. But really each character as a group, you and your friends, decide what happens. So if you and I were playing, for example.
Okay, we're going to play.
We're going to play very brief, do a little role play here.
A little one. I've never played before.
Yeah.
I should tell you this.
Yeah, but you're familiar with the genre of what
Yes.
a fantasy kind of thing is.
Yes.
And that's in a way, that's what's great about D&D is that when I played it, no one really knew that genre, but now because of the popularity of video games and things like Lord of the Rings, everyone kind of gets what a dwarf and an elf is and a hobbit. So you and your adventuring party are about to approach a castle or something where you have to rescue a little boy who's been captured from the local town.
Okay.
So do you want to be a thief, a wizard, a warrior, or a holy woman, like a powerful priest?
Wizard.
Okay, you're a wizard. All right. So you might have a party with several characters, each of whom are represented by one of the different people around the table. You are the wizard. All right.
Okay.
So you come to the table. You come to the castle. The person who tells the story says, "Okay, Molly."
Wait, I want to be a wizard, but no one knows I'm a wizard.
No one knows a wizard.
Yeah.
Okay, you're sort of a stealth wizard. You got your robe.
Stealth
no one really
wizard.
knows what goes on. And I might say to you, okay, you have some choice. You need to get into the castle.
Okay.
You could, cast a fireball and blow the door open. You could try to sneak around and try to find a way into the castle. You might try to scale the castle. You might be able to cast a spell that would allow your party to get it. So I would say to you basically, all right, here you are, Molly. What do you want to do? And what do you want to do?
I'm going to just snap my fingers and everyone's inside.
And everyone's inside.
Yeah.
Okay. So
but
then
no one remembers how they got in there.
Okay. So then what I would do is you're going to cast a spell, and I would have you. Usually, what we do in this game is we roll dice to determine whether you get to do it or not. So I will say something like you need to roll, a 13 or something for that spell to take effect. So you would roll it. You can't see this off camera, but she has rolled a 20! Oh my God, this is amazing. A 20 is amazing. Congratulations. It's like winning. It's like getting the golden ticket in Willy Wonka or something. So. The 20 is like the coveted Holy Grail roll. This never happened. This is awesome. So when you roll a 1, you fail miserably, and when you roll a 20, amazing things happen. So like in the movie The Hobbit, they're trying to kill the dragon, and they shoot the one arrow, and it goes in the spot right where the dragon doesn't have any armor, and it kills the dragon. Right. So this is sort of the version of that. So not only have you managed to teleport the entire party into the castle, but you have teleported them directly into the room, the secret chamber in the dungeon where the little boy prince has been held captive.
Okay.
And also you, I don't know, come up with something awesome that happened. And you also discover in the room that there's, a big pile of treasure and a magic sword.
And pizza.
And pizza, exactly. Wild boar and dragon brontosaurus pizza or something like that. So normally what would be happening is if you were playing with, typically you can't play with just 2 people, you need 3 or 4. Okay. You as a group would decide, and then your other person who's in your group who might be a thief or a warrior say, I'm gonna do this. And you guys as a group, and this goes to the part about how D&D is good for you, in a day and age when a lot of us play games independently, online, or we don't have a lot of interaction with each other directly.
Yeah,
you are solving a problem together as a group, so you have to negotiate amongst yourselves. You work cooperatively. You're not trying to kill each other. You as a team are trying to solve the problems.
That goal together.
And then I might say, okay, as you're in this room about ready to free the prince, suddenly the door bursts open and a giant troll comes in.
Oh no!
And what do you do?
And then what? I feel like if you're a wizard, you can get out of stuff easy.
Really, but not always.
But you have to roll.
Sometimes you have to roll, or this troll might dodge your spell or whatever. So you sort of get the idea, and the story is sort of improvisational. And the person who's sort of the referee of the game, that's called the Dungeon Master, which is kind of a goofy title for the person the Game Master, we'll call him or her. Okay. They sort of are the ones who sort of making sure that the story stays on track and that everything that you want to do doesn't immediately kill you, but at the same time it isn't super easy that you're just not challenged, right? And so you go forward and different things happen, and the adventures can happen, outdoors or underground in the dungeons, or in towns, or whatever world that the Dungeon Master creates. So that's sort of the basic idea. And as a result, you have a lot of fun, but you learn some other skills. I believe, anyway.
I just think this is such a great opportunity, especially now. And this game became popular a long, long time ago and kind of has had a resurgence.
Definitely.
And I think it's such a great opportunity for kids to, step away from their screens. And it's so valuable because you can use your imagination. So you are teaching 3-session courses at the Rochambeau Library over spring vacation.
That's
so
right.
We'll put a link online, but the dates are Monday, April 16th, Wednesday, April 18th, and Saturday, April 21st. So you can sign up, and again, we'll put the link up online. So what will you be teaching? Are you teaching basically what we just went through now, kind of how to work through it, how to problem solve?
Yeah, and it's meant to be, a lot of people hear about this game and they think it's either really hard to learn, or they think, I'm not really nerdy enough to do this. So it's meant to be low entry, anyone who wants to come, it is for kids. But, if it's successful, I might teach a version for adults as well. It's a free class. And the idea is just anyone who wants to come and play can. And we teach you how to play. And, if you've never played a game like that before, you're not really sure. So we'll ease each other into it. Everyone will learn together. And as I notice the group sort of progressing and getting better at it, I kind of make things more difficult and we kind of go along. But it's like any game, there's a certain amount of, there's a learning curve, but it's not a huge one. And, my experience has always been like once people begin to start to play, they don't really worry so much about, like, am I doing it right? It doesn't matter. You're having fun.
I think that's so important too. Am I doing this right?
Yeah.
Is this going to work?
Yeah.
And I think especially today when there's so much pressure for grades, activities, functions, like that kind of thing, that goes away with this because it's really just where your mind takes you, where your creative thoughts take you. I think it's so cool too. What I was just thinking about, whenever we go out to dinner or go out to lunch or whatever, you always see kids on their phones or on their tablets or whatever. I think once you learn this game, what a great opportunity if you're going out to dinner or a restaurant, whatever, you can play with your kids, play a game, or if you have a couple kids that you're taking out to dinner or something, get it off the tablet and have them play this game.
Yeah, it's something I feel really passionate about, and I don't want to be sort of grumpy old man, shouting at the clouds or, technology, the future. But I do feel really strongly, and I think a lot of parents out there who have kids are concerned about the amount of time that their kids are spending in front of screens. And that it's not to say that activities on screen can't be useful and can't be valuable and learn and be educational, but we need to balance it, and we need to find things that kids can do not in front of screens where they really have to use their problem-solving skills and their imaginations. While the world that you play in Dungeons and Dragons reminds you very much of some really sort of elaborate video games that kids are used to hanging out in.
Yeah.
All that world building, all the cool environments, that's all up here, right? All the kids around the table have to kind of conjure that as a group. And that's what's cool about it. Everyone, of course, has their own idea of what it looks like in their own mind's eye. But as a group, we're kind of telling the story. And You'd be surprised at how easy it is to get immersed into the story and become kind of part of it feels real.
I love being able to build your own world. Okay, so let's talk about, and you originally wrote an article, actually just recently, for ideas.ted.com on how playing Dungeons & Dragons has helped me be more connected, creative, and compassionate. So we'll put a link to this article that you actually just wrote this year. And like I said, you feel very strongly about this, that it has helped make you really who you are, including a better person. So let's talk about 5 reasons. So if we haven't convinced you enough and you're not eager to play now enough, or at least Google what Dungeons & Dragons is and how to play, or if we haven't convinced you to sign your kids up for this class, we're gonna do it right now. Okay, so 5 reasons Dungeons & Dragons will make you a better person. Number 1, you'll get to be part of a team.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we all need to do anyway in life, whether it's at the workplace or working on a project at school, or the kind of activity that a kid might have if they're on a sports team. They get that communal group experience where everybody contributes a little bit. Some kids don't have that experience because they're not jocks or that's not how they're inclined. So the game is structured around this notion that everybody, there's dwarves and elves and wizards, and there's a kind of equal distribution of talents and abilities and skills. And so everyone contributes and everybody has a special thing that they can do, but you can't do it alone. And that's a really important skill and I think lesson to teach kids, that you can't always do this by yourself. You need to negotiate, and you need to come up with communal solutions to problems that are affecting the fate of everyone.
Gotcha.
So that's number 1.
So true. You've hooked me into believing this as well. Okay, number 2, you'll learn how to solve your way out of anything.
Yeah, and that's the same thing. What's great about this game is there's no one way to solve any problem. So the problem we just proposed earlier, where you're trying to figure out a way to get into this castle where you have to rescue someone who's been held captive.
And I lucked out because I rolled a 20.
And you rolled a 20, which is amazing, so you have beginner's luck, which is great. The kind of, and this is not a way to die, by the way, this is, I might, in my own mind, preparing that adventure for you and your team, I might imagine there's 3 or 4 ways, but the team itself will come up with a way that I didn't even think of. So your job is to kind of think out of the box and come up with a solution. It could be a solution that's like brute force solution, like we're just going to kill everything we see and like destroy stuff. Or maybe there's a guard in the tower and you can go talk to the guard and you can bribe him or her.
Yeah,
you
give
can,
him that wild boar pizza.
Flirt with them, or, come up with some kind of way to, I don't know what, charm them or something. So there's many, many ways. Yeah, maybe it's really hungry, and so you give him the pizza, and that he's like, okay, he's bored. He just works for the company guarding this tower. He doesn't care. So he lets you in or something like that. So there's more than one. There's always one more, more additional ways to solve problems than I think immediately meet the eye. And the group experience of sitting around the table, people throw out ideas, and then as a group you decide, all right, we'll try this. Sometimes you fail.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't, and then you learn and you get better.
It's so great. This is so great. Okay, number 3, you'll grow in character.
You'll grow in character. So I think this is more of a kind of a human development idea. Your character itself grows in the sense that you usually start out at first level. Like when you start out to play a video game, you're kind of like, you just fell off the turnip truck, you've got like a pitchfork and a whatever, but you go through these adventures and you pick up stuff, right? You're always equipping your character with cool stuff that you stumble across. And the sort of that trope that you see in a video game is very similar to D&D. So you start out, you're like the farmer's daughter or the stable boy or something, or just a first level wizard. But you gradually get better. And what I like to think about the game, for me as someone who was quite introverted and shy as a kid, is that I didn't feel super comfortable doing adventuresome things in real life because I was just terrified of getting beat up in the locker room, honestly. So the idea that I could go on these imaginary adventures and learn how to be a bit more brave and a bit more self-confident in these game worlds kind of gave me the notion that I could test out some of this brave behavior in the real world. So I kind of had like in front of me this imaginary version of myself that was doing stuff that I couldn't do in real life. And that's cool and powerful, and kids love to be able to do things that they can't do in real life, right? But then I think subtly there's a kind of human, psychological secret sauce here where you begin to actually feel a little bit like, all right, you're coming out of my shell. And that was part of my development. As I played this game more and more, kind of came out of my own shell.
If you see it, you believe it.
Yeah.
And then you practice it.
Exactly.
So, however, if you can imagine something, you can really create it. So, I love this. Okay. Number 4, you'll gain empathy for others.
Yeah. So this is another idea where, part of what it is to role play, and in this game, typically what you do is you not only choose a character like a wizard, as you've done, but you will say, I'm going to be an elvish wizard or a dwarf wizard or something. And you might have a particular personality. You might be sort of snarky, or you might be sort of grumpy, or you might be sort of foolhardy, or you come up with some personality traits, right? But in the course of the game, you are going to be encountering all kinds of other people, both people in your group who all have different personalities, right? As well as just the people behind those characters who are maybe strangers to you if you've never played in this group before. And the notion of having to role play someone else means, all right, I'm going to imagine what it might be like to be that other person. And so when I talk to them in the game, or I try to negotiate with somebody in the game, I'm thinking to myself, well, if I were trying to persuade this person, what kind of person would I need to be? Or what would we like to hear this or understand this problem from that person's or that character's perspective, or that monster's perspective for that matter. So the idea that you're constantly imagining what it's like to be someone else other than yourself is a really important lesson about, again, related kind of before to the other topic we were discussing, but that you're not doing this alone, and you also have to imagine what it's like to be someone who's not yourself.
Really a great building block for kids too, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, whether it's a character or not.
Yeah.
Just being able to relate. Okay, number 5, why Dungeons and Dragons will make you a better person. You'll tap into one of the greatest talents of all, your imagination.
Your imagination, and that's definitely something that gets thrown around a lot. Like, this is a portal to the imagination, and I think lots of activities I think stimulate the imagination. But I think this game, like a lot of activities, but in a special way, Dungeons and Dragons has a way of requiring that you have to really picture this world. You don't get pictures, and you don't get a video screen to sort of where you play, and it all happens in your head. And the person who's the sort of referee, he or herself has to prior to the game beginning, do a lot of writing, story building, maybe making maps, designing what the world looks like, what happens in this world, what is the history like, all these sorts of things, right? And then you yourself as a character, you want to come up with a sort of plausible backstory for who you are and how you got here and what drives you. So you're already sort of thinking about character and plot and motivation, that kind of creative stuff. For me, I feel like the game was a very important way to kickstart my own interest in storytelling and being a writer. Like, I don't think I would have been a writer if I hadn't learned how to play this game way back, in the Reagan administration a long time ago. So that part of it is a real, so many people I know who used to play D&D as kids. Not all of them still play like me as an adult. Most of them left it behind, which is fine. But they've gone on to become screenwriters and filmmakers and musicians and creatives. And a lot of famous people, like everything from Stephen Colbert to Vin Diesel to lots of people now are thinking about this idea that maybe it's okay to play these games. They kind of are training grounds for some really important creative and career building and personality building pursuits.
If you take a look at, and again we'll post the article that you wrote about the 5 reasons why Dungeons & Dragons essentially makes you a better person, you designed this map, because it really is a world-building game. You designed this map of, and I'm assuming this is just one of your many creations. Yeah. It's so intricate and so detailed. Like you said, back in the Reagan administrations, it really is. You tap into your imagination. You tap into this world that you created. And I just think what a valuable tool. Here it is, this game that someone created. Yeah. And how it really affected your life so deeply. And we don't even know how many people this has affected so well, right? Yeah. And the stories that you've written, your book that you've written, so many things. And hopefully this interview and the classes that you're teaching, who knows who else we can inspire, right?
Yeah, I hope so. That's the goal. It's
very exciting. So thank you so much for sharing with it today.
My pleasure.
I'm excited that I got my first taste of Dungeons and Dragons today. I feel like I did really well. But what else is cool is we did like 2, 3, 5 minutes, and these games can go on forever, right? There's really no end. Yeah,
a game session is usually at least a couple hours, sometimes longer, and then the story also continues. That's the other thing to think about, is it's not just a quick one-off 3-hour thing, but you'd get something happens, but we always leave it on a cliffhanger so that we want to play again a week later or a month later or whatever it is. So these stories can last for weeks, for months, for years, and that's what's kind of cool about it. Is there's always this notion that the story could go on. It's like this sort of epic story that you're part of.
If you don't, if you're like, I just don't like this story anymore, like, we don't need a sequel, we don't need a episode 6.
Right,
Can
right,
you just
right.
like put the kibosh on it and
Sure,
start
absolutely,
over, like,
yeah,
bring another
yeah.
different one about?
Yeah, and the other thing is the flavor that I mentioned earlier of D&D be kind of being set in a fantasy world. That may not be appealing to a lot of people. So
yeah, can you do like space
absolutely.
or westerns?
There's two popular genres. So there's role-playing games that take place in like a post-apocalyptic America, and then there's pirate steampunk ones, and there's ones that are set in the 1920s, and some that have sort of a James Bond espionage. So they don't have to be set in a kind of magical, swords and sorcery, Lord of the Rings world. If that doesn't float your boat, they are role-playing games, Star Wars, all these different.
So cool.
Superheroes. I mean, all the different brands now that all this pop culture nerd stuff has become so popular now, all these different sort of flavors of I guess adventure story. Those are all now available as role playing games. So whatever tickles your fancy in terms of like this is the world that kind of gets me excited. There's definitely a game out there for you.
So jump in. Ethan will help you and your kids learn how to play. He's obviously a pro. So we'll have a link on our website to, of course, all the classes. They're available at Rochambeau Library coming up here in about 10 days or so. So thank you so much for joining us today. That was super fun.
Thank you.
And thanks for helping people get excited and stimulate their creative mind. We're wrapping up here on GoLocal Live in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Molly O'Brien. We'll see you once again. I'm Molly O'Brien. We'll see you once again. I'm Molly O'Brien. We'll see you once again. I'm Molly O'Brien. We'll see you once again.